Hey everybody, welcome into the Lettermen Lounge in beautiful Columbus, Ohio. The sun still shining again this week. Another win for Ohio State. We don't have to break it back down, although I don't know how great everyone feels about it. This is Roosters. This is a fun, casual conversation, and it's Lettermen Live. Ohio State won 41-20. Just a 3-touchdown comfortable win.
Yeah, comfortable.
Yeah, Justin Zwick, Nicole Cox, Bobby Carpenter. We got Spencer Holbrook in the building this week. I am
If
Austin
that's
Ford.
comfort, you might be a sadist.
Well, you know, I did not feel very comfortable writing about that game. I had to wait. I've been waiting. I've got my go-to move of posting snap judgments at halftime when Ohio State is just blowing the doors off people. I haven't done that in a very long time, and it's got me pretty antsy. A 7-point game late into the fourth quarter against Tulsa was not what any of us predicted. And I get it that there are things that we could look at and say there was progress or efforts being made to fix the defense or this, that, and the other. But I don't know how comfortable the Woody Hayes Athletic Center is still this week after what happened against Tulsa.
Well, Austin, the best part about being 2-1 is a chance to go 3-1.
Is that how that goes?
You can really kind of make it work however you want. You can fill those blanks in with whatever you want. 3-0, 4-0, 2-1, 3-1. I mean, it's all relative, I guess, to what you're working with. I guess last week, I wish Mr. Tyvus was back here as he was just biting my head off. As I was saying, like, there needs to be better play from the quarterback position. Now, we found out that CJ's dealing with a shoulder injury, which is real, and he acknowledged that. Ryan talked about it. He says painful to throw a football. And so, okay, now we start to understand maybe why some of the balls are sailing. It doesn't look quite as good as you would have liked. We had like 185 yards passing. I mean, it wasn't great. And so if we're going to say last week when you're passing for 450 or whatever it is, hey, that's awesome. Well, then this week's great. I tried to say yards don't matter, points do. So I'm going to say the same thing for the defense. I mean, you don't want to give up 500 yards, but I'd much rather give up 500 yards and 20 points than give up like 250 yards and give up 35 points. So they did it. They did what they needed to do on defense. I feel like the defense improved in some areas. There's still some things, quarterback pressures, stopping the run, a little bit better. You don't really know because Tulsa wasn't trying to run it. There were some positive signs from the defensive backs. Don't like when I'm seeing a bunch and they're playing press coverage with the point receiver, and the defensive back cannot retreat and then cut everybody else off. That's just selfish play, all right? That's literally selfish play. It's like you opening the car door for your friend and then driving away. Like, hey, come on. Oh, here we go. I think I'm going to help you out, but I'm not really going to. I'm going to drive away. He backed up. He cut off the inside corner. I'm like, I can't even blame this guy. You didn't even try to stay. Your job is to hold the point and not let him get downfield so you can't cut off your buddies who are trying to do a more difficult job of playing off the ball and figuring out who these receivers are and where they're going to go. And so there's some of that stuff, and people get, well, that's coaching. No, I've watched them coach how to do it. That's why they play so many guys. Hey, you're not doing what you're told. Out. Next guy in. We'll find a guy who will do what they're told. And that's part of it. Like, you can only play the players on your roster and you can coach them up, but if they still choose not to do it, the only recourse you have is to take them out and to try to see if there's someone else. So we need to get more pressure, more blitzing, be more decisive, I think, in the running game. There's still some times where things got creased, and I'm watching, Cody and Tommy and those guys, they're doing fitting. It's like, just go.
Yeah.
Just go. Clean the picture up for everybody else. Sometimes we're more worried about being right than we are about being aggressive. And it's tough because the defensive line gets cut out of some gaps and there's some different things, but we've got to get that shirt up front like, hey, be where you're supposed to be. Forget about making the plays. Just be where you're supposed to be, and you guys are all good enough that someone will make the play.
We talked about that last week.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk probably about that, Nicole, for a long time, okay?
The next few weeks can't wait.
Nicole, I just wish that Bobby had showed up this week with something to say.
I know, right?
He's just not – he's got way more juice now in the middle of the season than he did for the season opener. He's fired up, and I love that.
I know. Well, and I get what he's saying, though. I get how we talked about last week about them making plays. I think they're thinking so hard about trying to execute the play and make it happen, then just you got to kind of live in the moment and just take what you can get and focus on being aggressive, like you said. So I think we just need to focus more on that because it will never be the perfect situation for the play to work out perfectly. It just doesn't work like that. That's why it's football.
But, I mean, is it more of a call that's making these guys think more? I mean, I don't feel like they're doing a ton of different things once they're on the field and they're set instead of, rushing 11 people on and off the field. When they're out there and the ball is snapped, Is it that confusing for these guys to play fast?
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that there was some ambiguity maybe up front about what exactly is supposed to happen. And so the picture has never been the same. And so you've had a hard time maybe being as aggressive. And I know against Oregon, there was a lot of times D linemen were getting cut out of gaps and maybe guys weren't fitting where they were supposed to. And so it's like, well, I'm supposed to go here, but this is open and the running back's going over there. So it's like, redirecting. Is my guy going to get there? I don't know. You have to trust that your guys are going to be in the right place. Big trust. Woo-woo.
Big trust.
You got to be able to get that done. Like, hey, you want to go for it? Let's go. Let's roll. You got to be able to have that trust in the rest of the other 10 guys out there. That's why they always joke, like, do your 111th. Defense only works if all 11 guys are doing what they're supposed to do. You can have 10 guys playing great ball and one guy not doing it, and that could be from the defensive line, linebacker, secondary, doesn't matter, and you could be getting gashed because I don't want to say some guys may be selfish, maybe they're unsure. I don't know. I'm not exactly positive. Maybe there's physical limitations to what you're asking them to do. You know, there's a multitude of things, and also we're talking about guys who. This is still only their third game of playing.
Exactly.
But the standard, Nicole, the standard is the standard.
Nope.
The standard
is the best player that played at that position.
I do not agree with that at all.
Why?
Okay.
Because you can't.
When you retire, Nicole, you'll be the standard director at Roosters, all right?
I get that, but you have to give room for them to learn. That's how people get better. And you can't, I mean, you're right. Like the shoes, you're expecting these guys, CJ Stroud, to fill the shoes of Justin Fields that we just watched last season. There's no way that can happen. Justin had been there. He had already gone through his growing pains of learning through each game. And let alone, none of these guys played in games last year with fans. You know, the schedule was off. So we just have to give them room to learn. And I know that's hard for everyone. I had that conversation this weekend with people. You know, just they expect to see the Buckeyes look the way they looked over the past few years. It's a newer team. It's younger guys. And so they're going to grow so much in these next couple of years. But, I mean, it's the start of it for them.
We can learn with, like, B pluses and, like, Bs and B minus, maybe a C plus. But when we start dipping below that, Nicole, like, I'm beginning, and then the grades don't seem to always be getting better. That's the other thing. I need to see, if it can be gradual and subtle, but just a little linear acceleration here. We're like, hey, we're starting to see some things work out.
Well, I mean, you could say the run game. We held them to under, 40 yards rushing, so that was good, even though they, like you said, didn't really try. But they didn't try because when they did, there was nothing there, right? So maybe that's our, one little step up the hill that we're seeing from our defense.
But if you look at this defense right now, I would say that you're talking about B's versus C's, and when you start dipping below that,
Nick Saban talks about
the
B's.
underclassmen.
Yeah, yes, he does.
The underclassmen are playing at a B or C level right now, and that's a encouraging C. The upperclassmen on this defensive side are not playing up to their potential.
Some of them aren't playing at all. Seven Banks.
If I had to just make a blunt assessment of this defense right now, the older guys right now are holding this young defense back because they're not getting pressure on the quarterback. They're out of assignment at linebacker. They're not playing up to their potential or not getting on the field because they weren't practicing well. Like Seven Banks, like the young guys, Cameron Martinez, Denzel Burke, JT Tuimoloau, Tyleik Williams, like these guys are playing really well.
Yeah.
And there are parts of this defense that are playing well. But when you get this collective as a unit, they just don't look like they're in sync, and I think that starts with the leaders on this team. Like Haskell Garrett is the one upperclassman I can point to on that defense right now and say that guy's playing really well, and he's playing still at an All-American level, but I think it's being masked by some of these other guys just not playing up to their potential. They got to get this upperclassman thing figured out because the young guys are pushing for time, and at some point you just got to let them all play more.
Figure it out. At some point you got to let these young guys in the game and just let them go.
I think that's the hardest part, and I told this to Spencer and Berm on Saturday night. We're leaving the stadium. There are elements of both of what you two are saying. If I'm trying to judge Ohio State by four-time defending Big Ten champion, college football playoff contender, national title contender, this team is not meeting that standard.
Well, good news is not many other teams in college football are either.
That's correct, and I think that it's important to keep that in mind, that Ohio State is not the only team in the country on any given Saturday, and Alabama nearly lost. I know that's where we always draw the comparison.
Clemson nearly lost.
Well, so we'll have that conversation later on about which issue is more glaring, but the part that Nicole is saying that I am starting to get there myself.
Oh, goodness.
How am
Nicole, the persuader over here.
But no, I'm saying you're both correct. I'm saying that they're not meeting the Ohio State standard that I am used to covering over the last decade. But is it fair to expect that from a team that is dealing with all the issues that she described and is playing so many young players on defense and has a young and injured quarterback leading the offense? Like, maybe I just have to adjust what this. I thought this was a team that could win the national championship this year, and maybe it still can.
Well, you got to remember this.
Maybe it still can.
The standard has been we've lost how many first-round cornerbacks, and it just the next year seemed to be somebody.
Right.
How many defensive ends? Next year just seemed to be somebody.
Yeah.
That wasn't going to continue to happen. Just like Justin Fields last year having one incompletion through the first 2 games or whatever it was. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane the way this program was going this way. I mean, you're not going to keep hitting on every single person that you bring in.
I just didn't think that the plateau or any dip or would come right now. I didn't. Now, maybe I should have, but I didn't.
So I think you might be onto something. Lower expectations.
I'm not asking them to lower the expectations. That's not what I'm saying.
The 75,000 people in attendance may agree with you, and the 25,000 empty seats may agree to those lower expectations.
Okay. Well, my point wasn't that inside
and the ones that left throughout the game
was that inside the Woody, I know where you're coming from, that you cannot accept less if you're ever going to do what you hope to do in that building. Outside, when we sit there and look at it, maybe you recalibrate what you're expecting to see. Now, I think on both cases, 41-20 against Tulsa is down here.
Okay,
I'm not accepting that. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it was good. It was uncomfortable for me to watch. I didn't like it.
That's good.
I'm expecting a lot more against Akron, but we still are going because they won. We're going to go back to Buckeye Leaves. They are brought to you by Roosters, which has $2 mozzarella sticks for Appetizer Tuesday this week. If there are any left that I don't take home for Liberty after the show. Bob, do you want to go first, or would you like Nicole to go first? Because I know that she's going to take.
Go, let Nicole
her do
go.
it.
Because
Okay.
I need her positive attitude to rub off on me. I'm a pretty positive guy.
You are. And I do agree with the fact, and with you, Bobby, us holding and you being a Buckeye and playing for the team and having kind of more of that coaching outlook is that you do have to keep that standard high, or else you won't be the Buckeyes. I totally get that. I do that with myself. I completely understand that. So I'm glad you brought that up, and now I can kind of understand where you're coming from a little bit better. But I do still agree, from standing on the outside, us as fans, like, that we just have to lower it just a little bit and not, step back on them. So with all of that being said, I just had to make sure I got that.
Yeah.
I said that.
Close the book.
I think Travion Henderson, obviously, he was the star of the show.
Yeah.
He did absolutely unbelievable for the game. He had 24 carries, 277 yards. How many touchdowns was it? Three? Three touchdowns. So, great job by him.
Breaks a 49-year-old record that was held by a two-time Heisman.
Archie Griffin.
What?
That's a long time.
That's big time
for a record to stand and a big time name to break. So, sorry, Archie, you did the best you could for a long time.
Yeah, you held on.
At least you have a Heisman for each hand.
Yes, that he does.
I'm sure he cares about that a little bit more.
Justin, would you like to throw somebody out there?
No, I don't want to give a Buckeye Leaf to anybody else. I think he was the only bright star of
when they lose,
the day.
I get it that you guys don't do it. This is a winning. There's gotta be some champions.
I'll give mine collectively to the offensive line.
There we go. Okay.
Because he doesn't get those yards without, he'd be the first to tell you, without the big guys up front. They, maybe had some questions going into that game based off their performance in the Oregon game. So they seem to have got something together. And, they've done a decent job of keeping CJ upright throughout the year. And then 277 yards, breaking records with a freshman. The O-line did something right. So I'll give it out to them today.
I want to pick someone not so obvious as well.
Ooh, yes.
So I know a lot of you are not going to agree with me on this, but I want to give it to CJ Stroud. I want to give it to him because each game the pressure gets heavier and heavier on him to be Justin Fields, to be the star, and let alone to be playing with a hurt shoulder. Like, I think we need to take into consideration that playing through pain, I just think it's absolutely amazing that these guys can do that. I know a lot of football players do it. They never complain about it, but I think maybe I'm just a baby. I know that if I had like a sprained ankle, I don't even know if I'd come in today because I'd be like, this is going to be too hard.
Easier.
You know,
you've had 2 kids, so I mean, there's an element of pain there.
Okay, I get that too, but still, I think, and he's just got the whole world, all the Buckeye fans looking at him right now. So I just want to give it to him this week.
Done.
I guess I'll look to maybe 1 or 2 bright spots that I saw on the defense. Cam Brown, I think, played pretty well. Mm-hmm. He got his hands on a lot of balls. Did a good job, and this is a guy coming off a torn Achilles. Like, that's real. Yep. Struggled, didn't play week 1, trying to get back in there, and he's the one veteran guy that's kind of a stabilizing force. Seven Banks isn't playing. Josh Proctor's gone. Like, he's kind of the lone guy in there now that has big-time game experience, and we all remember when he came in, who was it in relief for a couple years ago?
2 years ago at Michigan State.
When Okuda, Jeffrey was out? Yeah, and came in, played really well. And so, I mean, showing that he still has that. And then I think Cameron Martinez, those are the 2 guys who did a good job. Young guy, he hasn't really played it all, stepped up, pick 6. And we talked about him being a dual threat. I know, Bird dogged him all over Michigan and talked about what he can do offensively.
Of all the shows for Berm to miss,
yes.
The Lettermen Live, 2 days after Cameron Martinez gets an interception and an assist on the other one to Ronnie Hickman, and he's not here. He loved him.
That's
too. Probably a good thing. The show wouldn't have been safe for work if he was here to talk about.
Because he loved Martinez. I mean,
more than any recruit I can ever recall.
Exactly. And so those 2 guys put it together. And so those are some bright spots, like a veteran who's playing appropriate and what you would expect, and then a young guy who's maybe turning some heads who might get some more action here coming up.
Needs to. To me, it also, I'll let Spencer take his pick here, but also the fact that you have these mass substitutions and these crazy packages, and Cam Martinez wasn't involved in them for the first 2 weeks, and everybody else is playing. I sit there, I'm so confused about what I'm watching every week. I never felt. Yeah, I am. Okay,
that's what they're trying to do.
I just am.
Yeah. Other than the miscommunication on the bunch set there, Cameron Martinez, I don't think he was out of position on any play. He was where he was supposed to be, and like you said, it takes 11 guys to do their 111th, but he's doing his 111th. And when you do it correctly, you get rewarded. And with 3 pass breakups, an interception, and a touchdown, that's a reward for him playing really well. I agree there. I'm going to take...
Was he the point guy on the bunch?
I think he was.
I was trying to see the number, and it was tough to see when I was trying to play it back. That hurts. But here's the other thing.
He came right out of the gate. Berm was standing by the locker room waiting for him and not going upstairs to the press conference just to talk to Cam. And rather than talking about the pick and the other deflection, he said he missed the tackle, wanted that back, and then the miscommunication with Lathan. Those are the 2 things that
Good.
Berm
nice. Own it. I like that.
But he owned that right
young
away.
guy taking ownership. That's what you want to see on this defense.
It's dude accountability. Berm and Martinez.
I'm going to take a page out of Schleg's book because I got a couple guys that I want to.
Oh boy, here we go.
Boy.
We've pretty much named anybody that's played well. So
Tyleek Williams was in the backfield 3 or 4 times. As a true freshman, I didn't expect him to play a lot coming in because I thought this defensive line was a pretty deep unit. I think it's more deep than it is productive. There's a lot of guys, little production. He's
more depth and girth.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, he's a freshman that needs to be on the field. Like if he's going to be that guy who makes havoc in the backfield, put him on the field and let him go. JT Tuimoloau, another guy.
Really
he's
good.
In the backfield. He's knocking guys on their butts at offensive tackle. That's not easy to do for a freshman defensive end, and he's making it look really easy. And he looks really good. Denzel Burke is 3rd in the country right now in pass breakups. Like that's a true.
Are you going to leave anyone for me to talk about?
That's real. So I'm not going to go into detail.
He likes you, man. You're done.
He did.
I should be used to it.
Yeah. Denzel,
it's been a while, though.
You can give one to the officials for the
I'm not going to.
The call on that.
That's the worst.
The catch?
That was the most inexplicable replay decision I think that I've ever seen.
Mind-blowing.
It was awesome. They come back, I'm like, he had possession. Like
hit him in the chest, he had possession.
We showed.
Like, if you lay a mannequin on the football field and put a ball on top of him, is that considered possession?
Yeah.
I mean, like,
that was wild.
It was touching him, but I don't think anyone ever confused that with actually possession.
No, his hands were here, but the ball was never in him. It was more in his arms.
And they showed it in the press box. And then I was watching it on Spencer's laptop. We just kept rewinding it over and over during the review. I was like, there's literally no way that they could get this overturned. And then he came back
About
out.
that. Surprise.
Especially because they called it interception on the field,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like,
It was overturned. Indisputable.
and that's
video
what they're like,
evidence.
well, look like when you touch him, he's down. I'm like, and it's kind of a 50-50 call. Like, but I thought it had to be like over 50 to flip it, indisputable, conclusive video evidence. I don't know.
I was absolutely.
Ryan looked pretty happy about it on the sideline.
Yeah, he was thrilled. And I was
I
absolutely.
wish Urban would have been there for that call because you would have been able to maybe someone had to go get his headset from like row 10 as he turned and threw it up into the stands.
Did you say Jack Sawyer when you were naming all the young players?
not.
He didn't play that much again on Saturday, but when he did, you could tell that anyone trying to block him was going to have their hands full, and literally with his jersey. I think he drew 2 holding calls, which you have to be.
Why isn't he playing more then, Austin?
I don't know. I thought Tyreek Smith actually played pretty well on Saturday. Javonte Jean-Baptiste not playing quite as well as I expected. Zach Harrison was hurt and didn't play. So I really thought that Jack Sawyer would play way more reps on Saturday than he did. But JTT is ahead of him, I guess, at this point, and he's playing well. I think it's definitely this week you have to turn them both loose as much as possible, and let's see what they can do. I mean, Tyreek Smith, his numbers would be a lot better if left tackles weren't allowed to wrap their arms around his throat.
Wait, you mean that's not legal?
Get it? Well, it is if it's Tyreek Smith. I didn't know that was in the rule book, but apparently that's the case. So the pressure is not there. But I've seen Tyreek Smith doing things that are encouraging and good. And certainly the freshmen, I think there's a lot of potential for them. Maybe it's a situation where they need more from the 3-tech. I don't know.
The scary thing is, there was a lot of passing downs, right?
Yeah.
I mean, last week I get it because, the RPOs, not sure if it's a run, pass, but this week, the guy threw for 430 yards, and they did not run the ball well. So it's like you're pinning your ears and you're coming, and we still aren't getting home.
And that was the weird part, too, about feeling as if the secondary had played better and getting their hands on 2.5, 3 footballs, depending on.
And the quarterback's sitting back there all day. Yeah, it's hard to defend back there.
It's interesting. Nicole, a primetime game against Akron.
Ooh. Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be a massive crowd in the Horseshoe for this one. Everyone has been waiting for a night game to get those fireworks popping. You've got an in-state opponent. Just a lot of intrigue.
AK Rowdy.
And a 53-point spread as we sit here. What's the Nicole Cox Roosters accurate prediction of the week?
Well, guys, I was really excited because I thought my prediction last week was 41-21, and I was telling everyone that I was 1 point off, and I realized that's what I picked for the first game. So I'm going to pick 53-12. I don't know what I'm sticking with 53. It's going to be a score. Yeah.
Works for me. Roosters Bowl giveaway.
Yes, we're still doing that. I have to call the 3rd week winner today, and I met our 1st week winner. He's super excited. So everybody just keep registering. It's a new winner every week. Fresh slate.
The Buckeyes only need 4 more wins, Nicole, to become bowl eligible.
Yes.
I think we're going to get there.
Be halfway there after Saturday night, according to Nicole's prediction. So
yes,
file that one away. Appetizer Tuesday, come in for mozzarella sticks. Those are $2. Register for the Roosters Bowl giveaway at the first available moment that you have. You can
RoostersWings.com.
Single week at RoostersWings.
Thanks, Bobby.
What do they get with that, Bob?
So it's interesting. You obviously get the 2 tickets to the game. You get airfare, and then deluxe hotel.
Deluxe hotel.
2 tickets. So you and a friend, if you're looking for companionship, it's fantastic.
You're looking for companion?
One every week.
Or if you already
week.
have a companion.
Well,
or if you want to take someone new.
I love that.
Whatever.
Who's to say?
Yeah, you got 2.
We're going to let Nicole Cox get out of here. We're going to talk a lot more about what happened on Saturday, what Ohio State needs to correct for this mass. Yeah, we're going to. Just get into your salad, and we'll get there. We'll be fine. We're going to be right back. It's Letterman Live, and it is brought to you by Roosters, which is a fun, casual joint. And now with some early bowl predictions, Bobby Carpenter.
Well, Austin, what I'm seeing here is 12 lucky Roosters guests are getting the opportunity to travel to this year's Buckeye Bowl game. Each trip comes complete with 2 tickets, airfare, and hotel. 1 prize winner will be chosen each week. Guests need to register weekly at roosterswings.com.
That's great, Bobby. What I was asking was your prediction for the Buckeyes this bowl season.
I have no idea. I'm going to Roosters right now to register.
All right, welcome back to Letterman Live. It's brought to you by Roosters. Bob just absolutely devoured a salad, clearly hungry because he was only eating moths over the weekend.
Yeah, the moths have a lot of protein. It's part of the keto diet. I mean, it's perfect for you.
And they fly right in. You just open your mouth.
Didn't even,
It's just easy peasy.
Didn't even need arms.
Yeah.
They were fully engaged doing other things, and just those moths right in the beak.
For people who don't get that reference, tell everyone what you saw over the weekend. You were on assignment. You weren't with us at weekend kickoff.
So I've had some of the ESPN Friday night games. Actually, I have another one this week, and I think that might be it for a while. But did the Bishop Gorman, the Haskell Garrett's, high school, Tate Martell, more importantly.
The Tate Martell.
He was slinging it this weekend.
Yeah, his high school, they traveled from Vegas to Phoenix to take on Hamilton, which is right outside of Tempe. Their quarterback, Nico Marchio, is going to West Virginia. And Bishop, they went down and scored. It's tied 7-7 early on. And then, Bishop Gorman has like 1,000 great players. And I say that like tongue-in-cheek. I mean, they literally have 7 guys in the ESPN top 300. I mean, their guys are fantastic. So their talent eventually begins to take over. They have the Branch brothers who are both offered here. One's a safety, one's a corner, or one's a receiver. The one that's a receiver ran a 10.3500 as a sophomore.
Oh, my gosh.
He looked like it on the field, too. Yeah. Unbelievably fast. Justin, I was telling Austin, they threw a 7 route to him. It looked like they overthrew him by 5 yards.
Nope.
It was enough arc. I'm like, oh my gosh. Tracked it down, laid out, one hand caught him. Like, this guy's good. He's not very big. He's only 5'9", but he can play. But anyway, Bishop Gorman was up 24-7 with about a minute and 30 left. Hamilton drives down, gets a field goal. I'm like, all right, 24-10.
Got the field goal at the end of the game.
It looks respectable.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, they're going to kick it onside. You have a minute left. Maybe you get it. You get another touchdown. It's like, it kind of looks like the Buckeye game. It looks a little better than it actually felt. Anyway, they kick an onside kick. They go 3 plays later. They get it. They go down and score. And all of a sudden, you're like, okay. Well, and they did the onside that you can't do in college or the NFL because you have to have so many guys spaced out over the field. But in high school, you can still have those guys all inside the hash and run just the 10 dudes down the pipe.
That one guy.
Oh, gosh. And they wanted nothing to do with it. And their head coach is the special teams coach as well. And so he brings them over. I'm like, you better get that coached up. And I guarantee he's yelling at all of them like, hey, someone's got to go attack the ball and attack these players. They kick it again, get it again. And their quarterback, they get it back to Marchio. Hamilton's driving again. They throw a great little F angle. They run like flat 7 on both sides, one-on-one, whoosh, whoosh. Does a great job, goes and gets it. And I'm like, you better go for 2 because if you give them the ball back, you have zero chance of being able to stop them. Gorman was pounding them. And so they go for 2. They run a rollout, and they lost the edge. May have been a holding on the defensive end. They didn't call it. And their Marchio dives, lays out. The West Virginia commit gets to their corner, man, and they win that thing. There's 8 seconds left, 25-24. It was absolutely unbelievable.
I didn't remember. You had told me that you were doing a game. I didn't know that was the I started seeing the highlights pop up. Like, you got to see this comeback with a minute and a half left in a high school
same
game.
Here.
I'm like, well, that voice sounds familiar.
Yeah. So it was tough because I woke up the next day and did my show for XM. I did the morning juice that day. You were right. A nice 3 to 6.
That's a nice 3 a.m. Radio call.
Did you even go to bed or you just stay up and rock it on through?
We know about Tempe, he probably came right in and
I did get some
fired
sleep.
Up the computer.
Well, because I had a 9:30 flight, and then and I wanted to be awake for the flight. Normally I'd sleep the whole time, but I wanted to watch Miami and Michigan State, and then also I wanted to watch who else was on at that? Cincinnati and
Indiana.
Yeah. Like those were the early games.
Heck of a game.
And so, thankfully there's internet on the plane, clicking back and forth, watching those 2, so I had to stay awake. So I had to get like some sleep. So I rocked about like 5.5 hours for Thursday and Friday night sleeping.
You don't sleep anyway.
I love sleeping.
So let's get back into this with the Buckeyes. That's what people.
Let's talk about the Big Ten had a great weekend.
Did they?
Michigan State.
They did.
Beat down
3-0.
Fake
Fighting
good,
Mel Tuckers.
Fake good Miami, who was supposed to be like the challenger in the ACC to Clemson, just destroyed them.
Worked out well.
Yeah.
At least we know in September this year. Usually they make it through this month.
They beat some bad teams, and it's like, all right. And then all of a sudden, Michigan State dominated them. And then you had Auburn getting taken care of by Penn State. Whiteout looking good, packed house, very robust environment. So that was fantastic. And then Minnesota just smacking the Buffaloes.
Yeah.
PJ Fleck looking good. Then honestly, Nebraska looked very admirable.
They had a chance. They had the ball at the end of the game.
Yeah, they were down 24. They were 24-point dogs, and it's a 7-point game. You got to feel good about that.
And they had the ball with over a minute to go.
That seems like it's more of an indictment than Oklahoma than it is praise for Nebraska.
But they were supposed to be a team like Ohio State that's elite and at the top of the heap.
And none of those teams really are, since Alabama also struggled. And I guess the point that I was going to make was Clemson's offense is absolutely terrible. It wasn't a fluke, and it wasn't just Georgia in week 1. So
Georgia's defense
which
is great.
problem would be more concerning, Ohio State's defense or Clemson's offense? Spencer.
It's Clemson's offense. I mean, Ohio.
I know, but their defense is good, so they're at least in games.
Are they though?
Well, I mean, I guess I don't even know who they played.
I guess I can explain.
Georgia had no wide receivers.
Georgia Tech they just beat, right?
Yeah, but Georgia Tech is not good.
Let me.
No, I mean it was what 14-8 or something.
Yes.
Allow me to explain.
A real beauty.
Well, all right. Sorry, Spence.
Allow me to explain myself here. I can find some redeeming qualities on the Ohio State defense. I just named a bunch of freshmen who are playing really well. There's some promise there. There's a couple of veterans that I think still have a chance to be on the All-American list, even on the defense that's not playing very well. This Clemson offense is horrendous. The offensive line can't block anyone. The wide receivers are dropping passes. The running backs are like 3 deep, and they're all average. And the quarterback is supposed to be like the next Cam Newton, and he looks like he's lost in space. I can find
like a ball in high grass.
Yeah, I can find some redeeming qualities in this Ohio State defense. Clemson's offense to me right now looks a little hopeless, and you can see what Ohio State's trying to do defensively, and you can see that, in my opinion, I think by the middle of October you're not going to want to play this defense at all because I think they're going to be on the right track. I'm not seeing much progress with this Clemson offense, and that's pretty concerning to me.
For a long time, Clemson always had the Sammy Watkins, T. Higgins, guys like these tall 6'4" receivers that were great. And then, they had a number of quarterbacks, and I think, then having Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence, I think kind of masks some of those issues a little bit. And one of the big problems, I think, with Clemson, like we talked, is their defense good. Georgia Tech had the ball. They took a goal line stand that they had to stop them, or else Georgia Tech would have been a 2-point conversion away from tying that game. Yeah. And no one's confusing Georgia Tech with an offensive juggernaut.
No, they are.
And Georgia was down all these receivers. So I think what we're seeing in college football right now is the teams at the top aren't as good as what we thought. And then the teams that maybe some of the middle tier teams are probably a lot better. Maryland's victory over West Virginia looks pretty darn good now.
Well, their escape against Illinois doesn't. Well,
and you're right. I mean, Illinois, they obviously beat Nebraska, and then they've kind of fallen apart. I understand
your point.
I never thought Illinois was very good anyway.
Right. They should have won that game if it wasn't for the most bizarre final drive from Burt that I've ever seen. You know what? It's last minute. Let's go ahead and just give away 37 yards of field position, making it as easy as possible for Mike Loxley, who couldn't have done it himself. Let's give him all the help he needs.
You want to hear about the Big Ten right now? The Big Ten looks really good right now as a collective. Penn State looks good. Michigan State.
The Big Ten East looks very solid.
Iowa looks good. Rutgers is I think Rutgers is 3-0. All of this is leading to somebody's going to get plus odds on Ohio State to win the Big Ten, and they're going to make a lot of money because this Ohio State.
You think they'll get plus odds? Tell me when you see that, because
I saw this morning Ohio State is at minus 180 to win the Big Ten, and Penn State is at like plus 260. It's coming. Ohio,
I like that.
Even after
just play bad for a couple more.
One more week. Just don't cover against Akron.
Listen, even after a blowout win against Akron, the Michigan's
what if it's a 2-score game against Akron? Do you think that might flip the odds?
Oh yeah. And then you know what? When you see that little plus sign beside the number on Ohio State,
I like that.
I don't know. You're more confident than I am.
Well, if the other option is putting your hard-earned dollars on James Franklin, God help.
Or Jim Harbaugh.
Okay.
Couldn't be me.
Hey, that's why they play the games. We'll see.
Clemson's offense or Ohio State's defense, Jay-Z?
Neither.
Yeah.
I don't like either of those. I mean, I
didn't say I don't like them.
Spencer is much more optimistic about our defense than I am. I think we saw some freshmen shine late in the game, which, we wore this team down. You knew that was going to happen. That always happens with a smaller team. We just keep rotating and wears them down. Some freshmen made some big plays towards the end of the game. Do they continue to build on that? We'll see. Do they continue to get the playing time? We'll see. We've been rotating guys in and out all season long. Yeah. So do they become comfortable? Do they become somebody that can go in a full game? We'll see. I'm just not that sold on them right now. I want to be, but, coming into the season, we thought we were going to have all this stuff answered, and we have more answers now after week 3, I feel like, than we did last year, in a year where guys were out and we were missing a bunch of people, and, the year was just weird.
I think the one thing when I talk about my confusion with this team, I know that the things that they tried on Saturday were signs that they're significant things. Like
they're open to change.
Yeah, that they're actually working on this. If you're going to, after 2 weeks, take the headset away from Kerry Combs and send him up to the press box, that's a significant shake.
That's not where you want to be after 2 weeks.
I don't know the exact number of times that they played with 2 high safeties on the field and a traditional look, but I know it was more than 0.
Mm-hmm.
The number of blitzes, I didn't count them up, but I know it was more than 0.
They did bring pressure a couple times.
So they did 3 things, and then they played some younger players, and so they tried. And it wasn't perfect, but I also didn't expect it to be. 1 week later, they hit your number exactly, 20 points allowed. So when you saw the things that Ohio State tried, including with Kerry Combs and Matt Barnes, Bob, like, what do you make of that, and can that work?
I think when you're going through a process, they were going to have some mistakes still, but when you start to change a little bit of philosophically how you play, and this isn't like they're putting in a ton of new stuff. Like, they've practiced these things. It's just a matter of calling them and when you call them and the frequency of which you call them. But you're going to change, fundamentally kind of how you operate a little bit. There's going to be a learning curve there. The players have to get used to playing like downhill if you're going to start bringing pressure and, if you're going to start playing a little more zone and doing some things. And so I think that from what I saw, like, there was some encouraging stuff. Like, there was still some mistakes and things that happened. But honestly, like, 20 points, they gave up 500 yards. That's terrible. It's the same thing I said last week with the offense. Yards don't count. You can't go anywhere and exchange 100 yards for a touchdown. That exchange does not exist. Okay? It's not like a currency swap. And so it's how many points do you ultimately score? You don't want to have teams obviously driving up and down the field on you. But at the same point in time, I'd rather have them drive and not be able to convert and get in the end zone. So I saw some encouraging signs. I don't know can you shut out Akron? Is that a thing? Could that happen? I know it could.
It could.
But,
probably should.
Should they? Is that the expectation?
I think you guys.
I thought we could have shut out a Tulsa team that didn't have a high-powered offense coming in that first drive. How many 90-yard drives or close to 90-yard drives did they put together? They kicked a field goal on 4th and 1 on the 3-yard line.
You can be as pessimistic as you want.
Well, they weren't confident in the run game.
They didn't.
There are high school teams that I would take over Akron in this country right now.
Bishop Gorman.
Okay.
Like IMG Academy. Like, there are high school teams right now that could compete with that. Like, Akron
That's
is
like
bad.
saying that Alabama's going to go beat the Jaguars.
Yeah,
Akron is bad. Like, I'm a MAC fan. I love the MAC. Akron is very, very bad.
Who did Western Michigan? Did they just beat?
They just beat somebody.
Pitt. They beat Pitt.
They beat Pitt.
Pitt beat Tennessee, your beloved Vols.
Hey. Well, I know that their reigning champion got their asses kicked in Laramie last week, so that's all that matters to me.
And Akron is bad. Remember that.
Okay.
Well, so maybe the expectation should be a shutout then.
Sorry,
it's bad.
I'm sorry.
The expectation, they lost, Fearless Frankie. Without their leader, it's tough. But maybe
Chives doesn't want me to get started on this.
We're not going to get started on this. This is an Ohio State show, ladies and gentlemen.
I want to ask Bob a question, not to jump off.
Do it.
It's on target for Ohio State. Who was your defense coordinator your junior year?
Junior year was Mark Snyder.
Snides.
Yeah.
How weird would it be 2 weeks in saying, hey, Snides, you're not calling this defense anymore. We got somebody else calling this.
I honestly would feel bad as a player because especially if that guy was the one and he was like the linebacker coach before, so he was involved in us. It's like we may not necessarily love what you're doing, and this wasn't the case. And our defense did struggle that year. We struggled a little bit as a team.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But I'm
just saying it's got to be a weird dynamic in the locker room, right? For these kids.
We didn't get it done for you as a coach. Like, that's on us. I mean, every call works if you go out and execute. There's some that might be better or more ideal, but every call works. There's going to be weaknesses. It's just can you make sure that you stay away and try to mitigate some of those. I think it's probably a little different. I honestly don't think that there's been like a massive change in the voice and what they're doing. I think Barnes and
they're not making Coombs sit in the corner while
I don't think
people are coaching.
I don't think that's the case.
It's just got to be a weird dynamic. I mean, week 3, you got a new, someone calling play. It'd be strange to me.
The part that I find interesting about it, Bob, before you finish that up, just the dynamic of them switching places. I thought
that does happen though a lot. That happens more than you think.
But the person that goes upstairs, I would have thought, well,
the guy that's upstairs is called the defense.
The plays, right?
That's usually people call things from the box. Like Kevin Wilson's in the box.
Yeah,
you have a better view at stuff. Matt Barnes, that's what people made a big deal about this. switching. And I'm like, well, Carey's probably better on the sidelines. And Barnes, I don't know.
That's why I don't get it, because like Carey is the juice bringer.
Yeah, the juice guy, yeah.
And like Barnes probably had a lot of input on what was going on, because you can only see so many things from ground level. You're relying a lot on what players tell you, and then you rely on what the guys tell you upstairs. Like, hey, these are the splits they're giving us. This is what they're doing. Hey, our guy didn't get over. He didn't get off the hash and cover 2. Whatever it is, you can see it all. And so I guarantee you, Carey relied a lot on that, because he does. Those are the eyes upstairs. Like that's the case for offense, defense, everything. There's coaches that like to be more in the action, and then there's coaches that like to be pulled out of the action and be able to say in a stale environment, and they're looking at it all, and they can be calm and cool and deliver the information. And so it's kind of ironic when they said, well, they're flipping and he's coming down now. I'm like, he could make the call. If you want to make the calls, he can make the calls from upstairs. Like, you don't necessarily need to just have
whoever's on the field doesn't have to call the plays. It can be
the GAs and guys are signaling them in anyway. Like, it's not like, does it really matter who's the one making signals? Like that doesn't matter to me at all.
Yeah, I just thought that was a strange dynamic.
It is.
They basically just did
each other's job.
Yeah, just complete swap. But I didn't understand. I thought, well, maybe the thing they realized was that they needed someone in the calm. You're talking about how many, the vast majority of coordinators I know defensively like to be up there. Mm-hmm. It's quiet, it's managed. You get to focus on the game. You can see the whole picture. Well, maybe they realized that that's what they needed to change. And we've even seen that offensively when they did that. Back in 2015.
Oh yeah.
That
we don't need to go. We don't need to go.
Well, like we've seen that before, and that was my expectation. All right, well, let's just shift some responsibility upstairs and let Carey do what he does from fire up. But they didn't ask me, so
yeah. I mean, there were.
Maybe that's a question that you should have asked Coach Day.
I have questions, and this week I'm mostly worried, curious about the quarterback situation. So,
well, that's a whole nother ballgame.
There are plenty of different, interesting dynamics that I saw from this defense that were way different. Like the 2 safeties is a step in the right direction, because I think you have to show that look sometimes. The one that was really interesting to me was the nickel package where they had Craig Young up at the line of scrimmage, and he would either attack the quarterback, spy him, or he would drop 40 yards into coverage and just show a 2-safety look after the snap, which they didn't even seem to have before that, and now you're dropping a guy back there. Like a lot of
guys that are athletic enough to do it. I don't know if they're confident in those guys because they're all inexperienced. They don't really show. They don't move much on this defense at all. And I think part of it's not a lot of them have played in guys in positions where you can really mess with the quarterback as far as the safeties and linebackers and how
they're too worried about being exactly where they need to be instead of maybe messing with him and getting him thinking, what are they doing over here?
You never want to show something at the expense of your job and your responsibilities. So I think that might be part of it. And now it's like, hey, you've got guys that are athletic enough that they can show here and get over there. Do that, because it's going to make the quarterback's job a lot more difficult than lining up and seeing a static picture and thinking, okay, there's my option.
Yeah, this is what these guys are going to do. These guys are going to stay here. I'm going to go here with the ball.
And I think Craig Young is that kind of guy who's athletic enough to play. He's a linebacker, but is athletic enough to play safety. He's the kind of guy on this defense that can get to the quarterback in a spy situation. He can drop to play safety because he's got those instincts and that athleticism to roam the field. He can come up and tackle and play linebacker. Like, that's the kind of guy that can really start to get this defense turned around because he's athletic. I think he kind of plays a little reckless, which is actually the kind of player they need on the field right now. He's
wild card.
You think he's got an edge to him?
We haven't had enough guys running wide open. We need a reckless guy out there.
Maybe someone, but if he's willing to stab it, dude.
Well, maybe if he's willing to stab it.
We didn't use that word last week. Reckless was hanging in reserve.
I don't know if I'm going to say that he's going to stab a guy, but I heard quite a few different guys on the defensive side of the ball.
They don't want to mess with him?
They called him a dog.
Yeah, that's perfect.
He's a dog.
That's perfect. We need dogs, not cats. You need some more dogs.
Meows. Don't need no cats.
All right. Well, they've got a chance, another one, to improve on that defense, get things fixed on Saturday night against Akron. Just the lights on, the atmosphere, all day tailgating. I know Bob can't wait to get down there.
I wish I would. I would love to go down and tailgate all day and go to that game if it was a game that warranted a night kick. If that was Oregon, I would be super juiced. I wish that I could go to Akron at noon and get that thing over with, the bludgeoning, and then go home and watch other games.
Yeah, that would be preferable.
What's the lowest opponent you would like to see a night game for? I know it's not Akron, but what's like the lowest level opponent to see a night game for?
Like ranking-wise?
No, I'm saying, like, would you watch Ohio State Maryland at night?
I think
that's going to be a good game.
Those have been night games before. I don't know. Maryland has. Rutgers, I know, has.
Yep.
I mean, if
Rutgers next week.
If Rutgers comes in, you know what? If they were ranked like 20th and undefeated at that point, and they had like a decent win, I'd say okay. Like Maryland.
Well, they beat Michigan, right? If they beat Michigan this week,
Michigan, I would be fine. I'd be fine with that because that would warrant, I think, a night kick. You've got to have a team that has a little cachet. You can't just try to tell me it's a big game by putting it at night. Like, that doesn't mean it's a real game.
It's real, and I can't wait to be there. Another opportunity for Ohio State to get better. We appreciate Nicole Cox and Roosters, as always, for having us in here in the Letterman Lounge. That's Jay-Z, Justin Zwick, Bobby Carpenter, Spencer Holbrook. I am Austin Ward. A lot more coverage all week long on the Ohio State Buckeyes and all year long at LettermanRow.com. Thanks again. Come to Roosters tomorrow for Appetizer Tuesday or any day before 7:30 kickoff.
Mozzarella sticks.
Get some food to go. Take it home. Come eat here. Watch the game. I don't care. Just involve Roosters in your plans. And we'll be right back here next Monday for Letterman Live.